Lesser Celandine. Lesser Celandine, we've done a number of videos on Lesser Celandine. This one is specific for lawns. So we want to talk to you about this plant here. It has this pretty yellow flower. Lesser Celandine is a non-native invasive plant. It was introduced into the United States in the 1860s from Europe. A pretty yellow flower. It's easy to understand why it was introduced to this country as an ornamental, but in North America, it doesn't have any natural predators and it goes wild. It also has the advantage that it greens up and starts growing earlier in the spring than most of our native plants. So it has a competitive advantage. It starts growing and reproducing before our plants even get a chance to start competing. So if it's left unchecked, well, we'll go ahead and show over here. If it's left unchecked, it just grows so you have a solid carpet through the woods. It can handle shade, so it has no problem with growing in the deep shade of the woods. It can also grow out in the sun in the lawn area. Right now it's just starting to bloom, so we are at March 27th or so. Just starting to bloom, just starting to open up. This will be a pretty carpet of yellow at some point, but again, you have to pay attention to the fact that it is going to just choke out all of the native wildflowers that grow here. Lesser Celandine, at least in southwestern Ohio, does not reproduce by seeds. It reproduces vegetatively, so underneath the plant it produces tubers, and then as the plant grows up in the leaf axils, it'll get little bulblets that those can be spread around and spread the plant that way. You often see in a situation like this where, here, if you just look out over this trail, you can imagine someone planted this up in their garden area as a ground cover, and then all this trail that goes off into the woods, the homeowners here, this is not our home, we're at a neighbor's property, but they have some sort of an ATV and they drive off into the woods there, and each time they do, they take a little bit of dirt and some vegetative material from the Lesser Celandine, and they track it a little further into the woods. So if you look at the woods, you've got a dense trail of Lesser Celandine going off into the woods, and then a scattering of it spread throughout the woods, probably from deer walking through it and things like that. So on our property, we treat Lesser Celandine with an herbicide. We use a 4% glyphosate solution. That's stronger than a lot of people would suggest. That's just what the happy point that we've reached, because we find that when we treat it with 4%, it's done and we don't have to go back and retreat it. If we use less than that, it may kill off most of it, but it doesn't kill off all of it, and then we have to come back and retreat it, and we don't like to retreat an area over and over again. We like to treat an area and then let it recover. We have another video just on different methods of treating Lesser Celandine. It's worth watching if you're curious. It has some alternative methods other than herbicides if you're uncomfortable with herbicides. Things like black plastic and clear plastic and burning, and there's a whole series of things. Vinegar, different concentrations of vinegar. Our conclusion at the end of that was you really have to kill off the roots, so you need a systemic herbicide like glyphosate. The thing about glyphosate is it doesn't work on a lawn situation. So we are over at a neighbor's property right now trying to figure out a way to treat within a lawn that doesn't kill off the lawn. If I came in here and I sprayed the Lesser Celandine in the lawn, it would not only kill the Lesser Celandine, it would also kill the lawn. So the thought is that there's a number of broadleaf lawn applications, things that are made for killing broadleaf weeds in the lawn, and that if we can find something that will kill off Lesser Celandine, which is broadleaf, and leave the grasses in the lawn, that would be ideal. I'll give you the executive summary. We did 12 test plots last year about this time, a number of different concentrations and different types of weed control herbicides. We found nothing that really had a significant impact on the Lesser Celandine. So you could look at that as a failure. I'm choosing to channel my inner Thomas Edison and say that it's not a failure. I haven't failed. I've only found 10,000 ways that don't work. So we've got a whole list of ways that don't work right now, and we thought we would share them with you so that you don't have to follow that path and try things that potentially aren't going to work. To be honest, we treated this in April, April 3rd, I think it was, somewhere early April. So it could be that if you treated it earlier, it might work better. So this is the first thing we tried. This is Ortho Weed Be Gone, the chickweed, clover, and oxalis killer formulation. The active ingredient is the triethylamine salt of Triclopyr, and it's at a concentration of 8%, so it needs to be diluted. Triclopyr is a broadleaf killer that will not kill the grasses. So this is a salt form, so it dissolves readily in water and is taken up through the leaves of the plant. Some people would call this Triclopyr 3. We tried it in both sides of the recommended range of 1 ounce per gallon and 2 ounces per gallon, which calculates out to be about 0.063% active ingredient and 0.13% active ingredient. While the leaves shriveled last year, this year the plants look just as vigorous as they did before we treated it. So then we tried this product called Brush Tox. Again, the active ingredient is Triclopyr, but this is the butoxyl ethyl ester formula, which is dissolved in a petroleum distillate. Some people refer to that as Triclopyr 4. It's normally used for controlling woody material by treating like cut stumps and treating the bark, but when mixed with water it creates an emulsion that can be used to treat broadleaf weeds in a lawn. We tried the recommended concentrations of 0.05% and 0.09% of active ingredient, but also tried a much stronger 0.3% and 0.6%. So, 6-7 times as strong as what they recommend. Again, while the leaves seem to shrivel and die within a couple weeks after treatment, the roots must have been fine because it came back this year as strong as ever. Next, we tried a more traditional lawn weed killer. This is Ace Lawn Weed Killer Concentrate. The formula has 3 active ingredients that are common for killing broadleaf weeds and grasses. It has Mecoprop-p at 5.3% in the concentrate, 2,4-D at 3.05%, and Dicamba at 1.3%. Again, I tried the full range of dilutions recommended by the manufacturer, which is 1 ounce per gallon and 2 ounces per gallon, and neither of them seemed to make a dent in the Lesser Celandine. And I don't have a bottle for the next one. It's Lesco 3-way selective herbicide. It was a formula that was provided by one of the property owners, and is basically a stronger version of the Ace Lawn and Weed Killer. It's a commonly used product in the lawn care industry. It's not labeled for homeowners' use, and sale is restricted to licensed professionals. We mixed it up at the recommended 4 ounces per gallon, which meant that the active ingredients were stronger than the Ace product. Most notably, the 2,4-D was at 1% for the Lesco product, while it was only at 0.1% for the Ace product. But it still didn't seem to have any lasting effect on the Lesser Celandine. So for us, glyphosate works well because we tend to use it in a situation like this where it's out in the woods. And again, because the Lesser Celandine comes up early, you can spray it with an herbicide like the glyphosate, and it's not killing off the native flowers because they haven't come up yet, or if you're careful with it, they haven't come up yet. We have the advantage that we don't have it as bad as this. So that's the advantage of getting on these things early rather than trying to play catch up. Lesser Celandine comes onto our property. It flows in through the creek off of neighbor's property, probably not this neighbor, but other neighbor's property. So when we have to deal with it, it's a scattering of plants. So we don't have a dense area that we have to spray. We can treat individual plants. Because it comes in on the creek, we tend to treat them in the creek bed. So the formulation of glyphosate that we use is one that's more aquatic friendly. If you use a standard, like a Roundup or a standard formulation of glyphosate, it's not good for aquatic situations. So we use Shore Clear Plus, which is an 18% glyphosate concentrate that we have bought locally at Rural King. It's not available there right now for whatever reason, but it is available at Tractor Supply for $54.99 a gallon. Again, it's 18%, so not quite as concentrated as what we normally buy glyphosate, but it's still it's not that bad a price. So the bottom line, all of the products that we used that would have been useful on the lawn because they don't kill grass were pretty well ineffective. Does that mean that they wouldn't have been more effective if we had done it at a different time? I don't know. Somebody could check into that. I'd appreciate comments if you've used some of these products and they've worked, maybe when you've used them. I've read something about if you use them earlier on in the season, maybe even before they've started to flower, here we're maybe at 50% flowering, that they're more effective. That would be good to know. So if somebody has some experience with that, let me know. It could also be that because they did shrivel up last season, we treated them, and then after a couple of weeks, because it takes a while for these systemic herbicides to work, after a couple of weeks they were showing signs of shriveling up. So that obviously means that it's hurting the plant. Perhaps they died off, the tops died off, and they were not able to energize, to send energy and food to the roots. And so this year the crop is weaker than it was last year, and that if you continue to do that for multiple years, maybe it would lower it down, and that would be successful. We haven't done that here, so we don't know. But again, if you've got experience with that, let me know. And let other people know, because it would be good to know. At this point, what works for me, particularly if you just have a few spots in your lawn, is to treat it with glyphosate. It's going to kill off some of the grass, but then you'll have a bare spot of the grass, and the grass will fill in. It's better than that than letting it grow, and then it grows into a bigger spread. So if you kill it off, then you can replant it, and either reseeding it or just letting it grow back in again, and that may be a solution. Bottom line is we need to stop it, because it just grows over, and it's going to take over the world here. So I appreciate you checking out the video. I appreciate your interest in how to control this. Thanks for coming.